Hello everyone and welcome back to a brand new video and welcome to round 4 of season 3 of our F125 Red Bull Driver Career Mode. Yes, we return this weekend here to the Sakir circuit and the Bahrain Grand Prix. Of course, if you missed out on the last video that went live a couple of days ago from Suzuka, I would highly recommend going back and checking it out. 3 races down so far this season, and although the championship might not show it so far, it has been a fantastic and fascinating contest so far. We've seen a lot of drivers kind of have some really standout performances. A lot of drivers get some bad luck as well, but it has been Lando Norris and I that have been the consistent ones early on this campaign. 2 wins for myself though means that we have now got a 14-point lead at the top of the table, as Norris is slowly getting worse every weekend. First in Australia, second in Shanghai, third Japan, so he's obviously going to finish 4th this weekend as well. Alexander Albon, very consistent in that Williams, still in 3rd overall, and Oscar Piastri, got his first proper points of the year to now see himself tied with Charles Leclerc. Max Verstappen, 2 DNFs in the opening 3 Grand Prix have left our teammate very, very unhappy with Red Bull at the moment, but despite that, we are still top of the Constructors' Championship by 2 points over McLaren as well. So I think we're going to be in for another Red Bull versus McLaren rivalry over the course of this season. Of course, if you're new, please do make sure to leave a like, get yourself subscribed. We're trying to hit 15k subs here on the channel. But yeah, without further ado though, let's return to the Sakir circuit.
Well, as the sun goes down, the speeds go up. It's almost time to get underway for this shootout for the fastest time and the best possible grid position for tomorrow's race. Let's get on with it. It's qualifying for the Bahrain Grand Prix.
Well, as we head then into qualifying here from Bahrain, it's really our first look to have a look at what the Red Bull car is like under the floodlights then. And well, I think all of the cars look pretty good inside this game when the sun sets. Not quite as good as my Cadillac, it must be said. But this livery, still looks fantastic. But so far this weekend, a bit like what we saw with Red Bull IRL this year. If you remember, Verstappen, it was the first weekend where they properly kind of fell off in terms of pace with the Dutchman's car. Of course, he's had a pretty tough time so far this year, so he will not be hoping for a repeat of that this weekend. But yeah, this circuit now though, inside these games, really feels like a circuit you can really kind of attack. It's going purple there through the first sector, despite a little bit of a wobble. I mean, look at that, the S is pretty much entirely flat out. Purple in Sector 1, purple in Sector 2 there as you just run a little bit wide up over the top of the hill. Once again, this Red Bull seems to struggle in free practice, but we get to qualifying and it really does come alive there as just trying to keep it clean and tidy through that final corner on the quick run back towards the start-finish line. It is going to be a 1:25.5. We go to the top of the board. Well, at the moment then, we are only a 10th quicker than Lando Norris, but he's gone back out and done his final run a little bit before everybody else. So our nearest rival then, I guess now, is going to either be Verstappen or Lewis Hamilton. Alex Albon not too far away either. You never count out the tie driver, especially with how good that Williams looks over 1 lap pace this season. But will we need to chase any more, or was that first run going to be enough to put this Red Bull car on pole position then through the first couple of corners, nice and tidy once again, but immediately dropping a 1/10 of a second, so maybe the circuit now just getting a little bit cooler. Have to wait and see, like I said, if anybody else improves there, is hopefully, or with a little less of a ragged run up through the top of the circuit, we can find a bit more. I just don't think the circuit's got the grip anymore. We are really struggling to kind of get this car where we want it. Is everybody else then coming to the end of their laps? Are we going to see any more improvements by any other drivers? I think we've done it. I think this is going to be pole position. Meanwhile, we are nearly 0.3 of a second down on my previous lap. Will it slowly start coming back towards us? Maybe it just took the tyres a little bit longer to find some grip on this final run, but very, very peculiar as we climb up the hill. We're now down to about a 1/10 away. I just want to go quicker again. To be completely honest, I want to kind of find just how quick this car can go around this circuit. But we took pole position last weekend by just 1/1000th of a second over our teammate Max Verstappen. The margin is going to be a little bit bigger this time though as we attack the curb through the final corner. A little bit squirrely on the exit. We are going to improve again by next to nothing, but 2 laps that are good enough for P1.
Yes. Excellent lap. We're all very, very pleased with that one. Nice work. Come on, I'll see you back in the pits.
Well, overall then, a very, very weird qualifying session, but not going to complain with the fact we line up on pole position once more. Lando Norris in second ahead of Verstappen there, with Hamilton, Charles Leclerc and George Russell inside your top six. A bit disappointing for Williams. They seem to have dropped down the order ever so slightly here as Mercedes look to get more competitive. Oscar Piastri, though, a disastrous run down in P14. Franco Colapinto P16 in his Ferrari. That's a little less surprising for the Argentinian. But I guess it's race time then here from Bahrain. Can we make it 3 wins in a row?
We're here again then at a circuit famous for its stunning visuals and thrilling battles for glory. Who will take the spotlight in the Bahrain Grand Prix today? There's no shortage of passing opportunities around the 3.36 miles of the Bahrain International Circuit, with the best, of course, at turn 1, and then another soon after into turn 4. 15 corners here, 6 to the left and 9 to the right, and we could see 1 or 2 flat spots into that tight left-hander of turn 10. Off the back of a fantastic qualifying session, it's time to see how our starting grid looks like for today's race. Mr. Monaco lines up on pole position, and Lando Norris lines up alongside. Looking at the rest of today's grid, we have Verstappen, Leclerc, George Russell and Albon, Sainz, Antonelli, Gasly and Esteban Ocon, Behrman, Hulkenberg and Sir Lewis Hamilton, Doohan, Colapinto, Bortoletto, Liam Lawson and Lance Stroll. Hadjar and Oscar Piastri rounds off the grid. That's it then, it's time to go racing as we head down trackside for today's race.
Well, a few grid penalties then up and down the order. Lewis Hamilton, after a decent qualifying effort yesterday, will start down the order, and Oscar Piastri clearly wants to stay out of trouble on the run in towards turn 1. May as well open up some extra components for himself in the pool. But Red Bull, McLaren, Red Bull inside your top 3. The team absolutely believe the 2-stop is going to be the way to go this afternoon, and although it hasn't worked for Verstappen in either Suzuka or Shanghai, we have got to try it today because ultimately Bahrain is such a high-wear circuit inside these games. I don't want to try, I just don't believe the 1-stop is going to be worth the risk here tonight. Everybody around us on soft, so a lot of drivers with the same idea. It is 5 red lights. Oh, and a ridiculously long hold there, but it is lights out and away we go then for the Bahrain Grand Prix. Lando Norris immediately will get the jump on me there as Verstappen thought about it to the outside as well. Whoa, Leclerc there trying to give me a big old squeeze, and we make just a little bit of contact with our teammate through turn 1. Luckily for us though, we'll squeeze out for the Ferrari on the exit of the corner there as lots of yellow flags out through that first corner, so I think there was a bit of bumping and bashing. Maybe a few cars coming together as well then, as Lando Norris already streaking into an early lead here. 1.5 seconds ahead of Verstappen as he kind of got the jump on myself and bolted from everybody through those first couple of corners. Will Verstappen make it to the checkered flag? That's probably a bigger question early on this season. Can Red Bull go an entire weekend without at least one of their cars suffering mechanical issues? It's been exactly the same in the last 5 Grand Prix. I just, touch wood, I have been pretty lucky with it so far over the course of the season. But Verstappen then trying to settle down into a rhythm. I'm happy just to see if he can drag us along for a few laps and act as a bit of a rear gunner. But if that gap to Lando keeps opening up, then we'll have to make the move. We'll Charles Leclerc immediately though as we start lap 2, thinking about having a look for a move there. We'll just try and cover him off. He seemed convinced he was going to try and have a look to the inside. So again, like I said, I'm happy to act as a rear gunner for Max very early on in this race, but only if it looks like he's got some pace over Lando. Looks like he took a couple of tenths out of him at turn 1, but we need to see good, consistent gains. Oh, Verstappen! Huge moment up at the top of the hill, and I think immediately then that gives us a good idea of just his speed in the car. Haven't had to use much teamwork so far, because ultimately we haven't actually been around each other very much this season, but Verstappen clearly struggling early on, and will the team make the call that he's got to let me by? Is Fernando faster than you? It's probably a radio message that Verstappen's probably hasn't had in, nearly 10 years in Formula 1? It absolutely blows my mind that Verstappen's been in the sport now for 10 years. I feel so old, but yeah, the Dutchman, though, trying to hang on just in front of us, but that gap to Lando just opening up by a few extra tenths, not helped, of course, by that huge oversteer moment. So let's see if we can get a run on him back down in towards turn 1. I'm still happy to try and work with him, but yeah, I just feel like he's slowing us down a little bit. I feel like we could go quicker than the McLaren man, who of course is my main championship rival early on this season. Bit of a swapper as we try and get the power down out of that final corner, but let's see what we can do then. Is Verstappen going to go defensive? Yes, he will. 250 miles an hour though as we're up on the wheel tracks. Dutchman tries to keep it down the inside there. We'll give him a bit of a squeeze, and we are back through and into P2. Well, I probably should have been a little bit more careful as to where I went for the move on Verstappen, because ultimately I've had no ERS even, so I haven't really been able to keep him at bay.
We can't let them hold us up for too long, so let's try and get past as soon as possible and crack on. Push, push.
That Mark trying to give us team orders whilst we're wheel to wheel with our teammate up through the top of the hill. Absolutely hilarious. F125, those little moments never fail to make me chuckle. And again, here comes Verstappen. I just don't think we can fight him at the moment. Seems like Charles Leclerc able to hang on to both of our coattails as well. So, yeah, Leclerc, I believe, if we were together, we could get away from, and hopefully then he wouldn't be a bit of a threat. But Red Bull seem to be the only team with both drivers battling at the front so far. And that'll make tyre strategy really, really awkward. Verstappen, he might struggle as this stint carries on, because I believe we've been given priority. Obviously, if he ends up with track position like he does right now, I'm sure that won't best please him. I'm going to try and charge up the pack, though, so we're just going to sit in behind. If by magic, then, we've basically got a full charge of battery once again, and just about staying inside the DRS range of our teammate Verstappen. But yeah, these tyres are feeling rather wrecked, to be completely honest, quite early on in the race. Now, I don't think we're going to get a run here on our teammate, so we'll just try and sit in still, see if we can throw him off his line ever so slightly, and then maybe go for a switch of turn 1 and turn 2 there. We've had some really good battles with him so far today. For the first time this season, as to the outside we will go, and again getting the run up the hill then and back into P2. I was hoping we could just be close enough to Lando that when he pits, we can maybe hold him up in the pit lane, just like he did to me back at Suzuka. But honestly, I'm not going to hold my breath. And there we go, immediately. This is exactly what I wanted to do. We have got Verstappen out of the DRS range as well then. And the gap to Lando actually coming down rather rapidly. Now again, I have used a lot of battery to make this happen. But if Verstappen and Leclerc get stuck battling each other, I've only just noticed Albon's on hards. So Williams then have gone for a very, very different strategy early on in this race. Are they trying to one-stop it and are just keeping the two-stop open for themselves? As, yeah, those hard tyres now, probably the ones you'd want to be on at this stage of the Grand Prix. But that is going to be fascinating to see how they get on. Albon, once again, though, seems to have better race pace than his teammate, as Verstappen and Leclerc now battling behind. It's giving us quite the gap. Will we see Lando Norris then into the pit lane as well come the end of lap 9? Honestly, I could have been so tempted to box the end of last lap, but I just know it won't give us the strategy later on in the day. So a little bit wide there out of the final corner. You can see how hard we're pushing. Make sure I don't get done for speeding then, as there come the McLaren pit crew out into the pit lane. So, yeah, I think we are going to hold up Lando a little bit. In fact, I don't even think we've held him up. I think we were close enough that it made no difference. As Charles Leclerc into the box as well then. So Albon now up to second. Sainz now up to P3 then. So it is going to be fascinating to see where those Williams end up come the checkered flag, as Lando, I think, is just about going to come out ahead of Colapinto and Lewis Hamilton. So Piastri and Bortoletto having a bit of a battle as well just behind. Going to try and slot in where possible, but hopefully we can get a run on the young Brazilian there. Is going so much speed off of the corner because of how much extra grip we've got, but Bortoletto still able to carry the speed up the hill then. We're going to try and look around the outside of Piastri. Definitely not enough grip there to make that happen. But we do move up then into P8. We have got to be very clean and very decisive with these moves. Oscar, I'm sure, will be told, obviously hold me up as best as possible, help his teammate Lando Norris out, who definitely came out in a more ideal situation than we did. Can I do the old Fernando Alonso trick? Yes, we can. To the inside, down at turn 9 and turn 10, and we will get by the McLaren. Verstappen into the pit lane there, but I feel like he's going to have been undercut very, very badly at this stage of the GP, as Hamilton also on the hard. So, Yeah, there are some interesting strategies. I wonder if I can radio in and find out what he's doing.
And the time last lap, 1 minute 33.1. Their tyres are 9 laps old. Okay, we think they've got 2 stops remaining. 2 stops remaining.
Well, there we go then. So despite starting on the hard compounded tyres, it's clearly Aston Martin, and I would assume Williams are doing the same thing there. Don't believe that they can do a one-stop strategy this afternoon. Let's see then. We need to get a run on Lewis as we make our way up the hill. He's going to swing defensive nice and early. But again, 10 lap fresher tyres, softer tyres to add to that. Round the outside we will go and back into P4.
Okay, the gap to the car ahead is 5 seconds. Let's see if we can bring it down.
Yeah, you can see how much time we lost. Obviously stuck in the dirty air there. Lando Norris, a much, much bigger gap. Kind of feels like this is payback for Suzuka. Well, there we go, Carlos Sainz then. That's rather early to be coming off a set of hard tyres, so definitely, yeah, Williams are two-stopping this race, or at least with Carlos's car. I mean, the hard tyres should be able to go at least kind of 14, 15 laps. That's a big, big surprise, unless Williams have been really worried about how well their tyres are making it through a stint in practice. But again, it just is another car that immediately is out of the way for Lando. We go Alex Albon then into the pit lane from the lead of the Grand Prix, so I believe he's the last of the hard compound runners to peel in. So Verstappen, he's got double softs then. So he's running very, very well behind us.
Pushing hard now. He's put in the fastest lap of the race.
Yep, I can see that, Mark, as long as you don't beg me to get out of his way. Because you might struggle for the answer you're looking for. It is a bit of a shame that the undercut is so OP inside F1 25, because it does often mean that the first stint of a Grand Prix, everything is quite obviously everything, is quite close together, and then as soon as everybody pits, you know, over a couple of laps, it does become increasingly strung out. I think the best way to fix it would obviously make the cold tyres a lot less forgiving on the out lap. You know, you can still extract pace out of them, but they might, say, be a lot more twitchy, a lot more sensitive, obviously trying to get them fired up. Otherwise, yeah, you just end up in this scenario where you know if you can undercut the guy in front, you're probably going to get a decent jump on him. That's what I'm just debating in my own mind, though, with Lando Norris. Do I try and pit a lap early, maybe get a couple of seconds closer to him, and then have all the harder tyres towards the end of the Grand Prix? Or do I just play by Red Bull's strategy and hope I've got the speed to close in? We are taking a little bit out of him each and every lap, but it is going to be fine margins towards the flag. But there we go then, as the team requests that I pit at the end of this lap. Max Verstappen has dived back in again then, so yeah, the gap to Lando down to about 2 seconds here. But I really do think we can afford to stretch these another 2 laps. Try and obviously work the overcut on him, and then use a set of soft compound tyres for the checkered flag. I think that's going to be the way to go, because I can just take a little bit of time out of him. We always seem to lose some once I've been through the pit lane there, as Alexander Albon on a very, very weird strategy today. Hard medium, I assume he's either going to go, well, it must be either medium or soft again, won't it, towards the checkered flag. But I expect we're going to see Lando Norris into the pit lane at the end of this lap. I'm not going to dive in with him, but we've just got to monitor the gap there. I'm just a little bit worried about getting caught out behind those Williams again, and effectively having to try and close back the gap to Lando, basically from exactly where it was at the start of this stint. There we go, Lando Norris into the pit lane then, so this is where we've really got to try and fly over these last couple of laps before those Williams cars dive in. Yeah, Gasly as well, having a really good race out in his Alpine. After that team, I don't believe has scored so far this season, have they? I think it's Alpine and VCarb that are yet to get off of the starting blocks, but getting the power down then through those first couple of corners. Will Lando get held up? He's also gone softs.
Save up some ERS, so let's focus on charging it up, please.
Yep, really not interested at the moment, Mark. But yeah, Lando Norris then on his set of the soft compound tyre as well, as he will just come out behind Carlos Sainz then. So I think we would have been held up behind Albon in this race, as Verstappen now on his set of hard tyres to the end. Verstappen, that might not be a bad call from our Dutch teammate. Oh, full well, Lando will get the run on Carlos back in towards turn 1, despite being former teammates. Clearly, these two, you know, they aren't going to work together. Carlos Sainz isn't going to do Lando Norris any favours today. In fact, he's going to peel straight into the pit lane as well then. So Verstappen now tucked up behind Alex Albon. But we've gained a little bit of time on Lando there, or he hasn't undercut me by as much as we would expect him to. gap now floating at about 20 seconds, but Verstappen could still be a threat towards the end. You can see Norris then has got the bit between his teeth there. That gap already has come down by a second this lap. As our tyre wear warning light flashes up, I feel like we've had a pretty good stint. It's just not quite getting in the range of the Haas car in front. But this is going to be critical then. Red Bull need to give us a good pit stop. So that was a little bit close on pit lane entry. But come on, team, we need a good stop here. We want to try and get out ahead, or at least close to Lando Norris in this race. At the very worst, ahead of Albon and Verstappen here. Or maybe we can drag our teammate back to Norris by the end. Here comes the McLaren man, new fastest lap of the day, as Albon peels into the pit lane there. So will we come out ahead of the Dutchman?
Tyres now. We want to finish the race on this compound.
Well, Verstappen will have temperature in his tyres, but we've just still got track position over him, so maybe we can drag him along. But yeah, Norris, we know his tyres are going to be pretty worn out by the end of this Grand Prix. 7 laps, 5 seconds. It seems like a highly unlikely task, but come on, if anybody can do it, surely it's us. Right, come on then, let's see if we can try and claim fastest lap. I know there's no longer a bonus point for it, but it will send a message to Lando in these final few laps that we are trying to chase him down. Not too sure what's happened to Leclerc in this Grand Prix. He seems to have dropped back quite drastically kind of through the second and final stint. I think, honestly, it was just Ferrari Leclerc did a very good job qualifying that car, because Ferrari haven't been all that competitive so far this year. I believe 4th place would be his best result of the year, but he could still get jumped by Sainz by the end. In Sector 1, purple in Sector 2. I'm pretty certain Lando Norris did have DRS assistance when he claimed that fastest lap just a few laps ago. Are we going to be able to claim it back from him here through the final corner? It is so fun when you get that final corner hooked up. Just the way the camber kind of drags you in towards the apex. But a 27.8 then, that's a new fastest lap of the day that will hopefully stay to the flag.
3.3 seconds.
Yep, I'm not so interested in the gap to the driver behind. I'm more interested in the gap to the driver ahead. That is now dipped below 3 seconds here. 4 laps to go then of this Grand Prix. The gap to Norris now under 2 seconds here. And I honestly think McLaren just got far too invested in the idea of he had to try and get the undercut on me again. Bolted on those softs maybe a lap or two too early. And I think Norris is going to start feeling the pain towards the end of the afternoon. Little bit of a wobble there from myself, as we will throw away about half a second. Hopefully that won't make the difference come the checkered flag. But with 3 laps to go then, I'm just getting a little bit worried. We've actually come up to a lapped car that seems to be a Haas. It's not something we deal with much inside the F1 games, especially doing these 50% career mode races. But are they potentially going to help or hinder Lando and I? Or could it help one of us and hinder the other one here? I'm hoping that we're going to be close enough to the McLaren that whether it's Ocon... Is it Ocon and Behrman? I can't even remember who's in the McLarens. Oh no, it's not Esteban Ocon, is it? Who's in the Haas car anyway? I should be saying there, but through the top of the circuit, of course, it's Lance Stroll, isn't it? That has joined Ollie Behrman this year, and the Canadian is just about going to get out of the way of the McLaren man, and he's going to let me by as well then. But that's really good, because we've now got the DRS off of Lando Norris here, so we've got 1 lap to try and charge back up the battery pack here. As you can see immediately how much Lando pulls away. No, Lance, this is not what I wanted you to do. Lance Stroll there, trying to immediately look for a move again. Back on us in towards turn 1. But luckily, we'll back out of it. 1 more lap then of the Bahrain Grand Prix, and we're now all over the back of Lando Norris here. We have charged up the battery. We've got the car now up in hot lap mode. But will it be myself making it a 3rd straight victory this year? Or will Lando Norris be able to get the jump like he did back at Albert Park and make it 2 apiece so far this year? He is really beginning to struggle on those soft compound tyres. We've stuck to our strategy. We've stuck to our guns. And hopefully we're going to reap the rewards right at the very end of it there. Diving down in towards the hairpin. Orlando, big wobble. Are we going to be able to get a run to the outside of him? Not quite able to there. Could we do the Fernando Alonso style attempt? No, we just lock up the front brake. Almost right into the back of the McLaren man as we make our way down the hill there. But again, we've got effectively now 1 and a bit more DRS zones between now and the checkered flag. I'm sure Lando Norris's soft compound tyres are screaming at him they surely have got no more grip, as we've still got plenty more charge in the battery pack. Tyre wear warning light has just now flashed up. Can we get a run though on Norris down in towards the final corner of the Bahrain Grand Prix? It's happened before this year that we have had big battles with the McLaren. We can't quite get there. We give them a little bit of a push in towards the final corner. Can we use the battery on the run back to the line? For the second time this year, Lando's gonna pip us.
And that's a podium. Excellent drive. The whole team have worked especially hard this weekend, and that, my friend, is a fantastic reward. Well done.
And here he comes. It's all go, go, go for Lando Norris as he takes the checkered flag and wins.
It was a joy to watch today, honestly, because the driver was clearly able to read the conditions well on track, to use the information properly from the team, and usually come up with the right solution at the right time.
It's time for our podium celebrations. And as ever in Formula One, 3 is the magic number. He raises the trophy over his head. Lando Norris, head and shoulders above the rest today.
Well, for the second time this season, then less than 0.2 of a second in it between myself and Lando Norris. But for the second time this year, it is going to be the McLaren man that will walk away with the victory there. Brilliant drive by him. Like I said, I don't know how he hung on to that last set of soft compound tyres. They must have been absolutely wrecked. Max Verstappen comes through for third ahead of Charles Leclerc. Carlos Sainz beats home Alexander Albon in another great race for Williams there, with Gasly getting points for Alpine. Hamilton, a good recovery to P8. Hulkenberg again in that kick Sauber, picking up some points there ahead of George Russell. Franco Colapinto narrowly misses out ahead of Ocon and Gabriel Bortoleto, and it was just, Lance Stroll that failed to see the checkered flag. Oscar Piastri must have retired on the very last lap, so for the second weekend in a row, the driver that's won the Grand Prix, their teammate has failed to see the checkered flag. What does that do to our World Championship? Well, it means now the gap at the top has been cut back down to just 7 points between myself and Norris. Albon's still in a very distant P3 there ahead of Charles Leclerc, who just is dragging everything he possibly can out of that Ferrari car. 5 drivers from 5 different teams now inside your top 5 in the World Championship. Verstappen now back ahead of Piastri as he gets his first podium finish of the year. Oscar still ahead of Esteban Ocon, Sainz and Colapinto still inside your top 10 as the ever-consistent Hulkenberg now back ahead of George Russell as well. Gasly ahead of Antonelli with Behrman there just ahead of Stroll, Doohan, Bortoleto and both of those V-carbs. Constructors-wise, Red Bull, we build up a 10-point buffer ahead of McLaren once more, as Williams still in third ahead of Aston, Ferrari, and Mercedes still yet to reach double digits, barely ahead of Kick Sauber, and of course now a maybe resurgent Alpine as well. Haas still with a point on the board, leaves just V-carb on nil point. Thank you all so much for watching though. If you have enjoyed, please do make sure to leave a like, get yourself subscribed, and we'll be back very soon when Formula 1 returns ready for the Jeddah Corniche, of course, the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix.